Hey, what's going on everybody? Azallea here, bringing you guys another Melodious deck profile. This time it's going to be post-Wing Raiders. Made a few changes between the main deck and extra deck, and my side deck is completely changed to match the new meta. So I'm going to try to keep this video a little shorter than the last one, just because I went over some of the explanations and I don't want to keep this too long. But if you guys want longer explanation videos on things, please let me know in the comments below, so I'll keep that in mind for next time. First, starting off, we play 3 copies of Arya, the Melodious Diva. Now, obviously, this is pretty standard. Arya is your targeting and battle immunity, so obviously play 3 of her. Very standard. A lot of decks have trouble getting over her, even though in this meta, with Monarchs and Cosmos and Mermails and stuff, and Pepes, they have an easier time getting over Arya, but it still makes them go out of their way to try to make the cards to do it, and hopefully you have the cards to stop them. So next off, playing 1 copy of Elegy Melodious Diva. She combos really well with Arya, so you have all types of immunity, battle, destruction, and targeting. She's very good, but you don't really see her very often. You don't always bring her out. She's just a nice option to have, especially against some rogue decks. Next off, we play 3 copies of Soprano, the Melodious Songstress. She's really standard because I'm playing a fusion-centric build, and she's a very strong card that allows us to plus, and allows us to go into our fusion monsters without a fusion spell card. So, 3 copies of her. Next off, we play 2 copies of Canon, the Melodious Diva. Now, Canon is she's not that great in terms of an effect, but she does allow us to go for rank 4s, and she does combo well with Soprano for some fusion plays. Next off, we play 3 copies of Sonata, the Melodious Diva. She allows our monsters to get boosted by 500 attack and defense, and she allows us to beat over a lot of threats that we otherwise wouldn't be able to attack over. She's a main deck out to a lot of big monsters, especially Monarchs when they lock us out of the extra deck. If you have multiple copies of her, you'll be able to attack over their Monarchs and then be able to fusion summon afterwards. She can be special summoned multiple times per turn, unlike Canon, who can only be summoned once. So she combos really well with Soprano and can be looped a bit, so she's a very strong card in that regard. Definitely be playing 3. Next off, we play 1 copy of Tam Tam, the Melodious Diva. She is our polymerization searcher, so she can add poly from our deck to our hand or recover poly from our grave to our hand if we happen to go through all our polys. But yeah, otherwise she's just another name, and she's a level 4 for rank 4 plays. So she's not that bad at 1. Next off, we play 1 Sopina, the Melodious Maestra. I play her because she combos well with Transmodify and our fusions, and you can bring her out that way. She's also not that bad in terms of gaining advantage, and if you happen to have Sonata in the grave, you can recover her and special summon her. That's what I'm talking about, little loops with Sonata to just get some more extra damage on board. She becomes 2800 attack when on the field with Sonata, so she can crash into a lot of the Monarchs, the Mega Monarchs, and saves you some trouble there. So yeah, play 1 of her. Next off, for the non-Melodious monsters, we play 2 copies of Summoner Monk. Now, Summoner Monk, he allows us to ditch our spells that we can't use anymore, some extra first movement solos, or if you can't use your Transmodifies, your MSTs, something like that. Your spell cards are basically never dead in your hand if you have a Summoner Monk. And he allows us to go into rank 4 plays. He allows us to trigger Tam Tam's effect, Soprano's effect, or even get an Arya out from the deck if we don't have a first movement solo. So very strong card indeed. Next off, we play 2 copies of Effect Veiler. Now, I main deck 2 Veilers just because a lot of decks like going first, and this deck prefers to go second, so having some hand traps in the deck to stop your opponent's plays is definitely very strong. And Effect Veiler can also negate threats like Trishula or Abyss-Gaios, and a lot of other cards that just can potentially wipe our field or negate our effects. So that's it for the monsters. Next off, we go into the spells. We play very standard 3 copies of First Movement Solo. This allows us to special summon 1 Melodious monster from our deck, level 4 or lower, when we control the monsters. So think of it as a hero lives, but without the life point cost. Definitely the best card to open with. Next, we play 2 copies of Transmodify. Transmodify allows us to bring out Elegy from our deck. Very, very strong card. She allows us to go into Soprano from Sonata. She also allows us to go into Tam Tam from Sonata, and allows our fusions to go into Sopina. So, very, very versatile card. But I only play 2 because you don't want to see multiples in your hand, because you can only activate once per turn. Alright, next off, we go into our fusion spells. We play 3 copies of Polymerization. So Polymerization allows us to obviously fuse with our monsters. I play 3 because I want to increase my chance of drawing into her, because Tam Tam has too many restrictions and she's not that reliable of a card to get Polymerization with. But yeah, you want to draw into this with a Sopina, and that instantly allows you to go into a Bloom Diva because Sopina is a Maestro monster. So 3 copies of Polymerization there. Here's where the ratios have changed from last time. I only play 1 copy of Fusion Recovery. Don't really want to see this early game. I want to draw into this late game where I have Polymerizations in the graveyard, because Polymerization is a really good fodder card for Summoner Monk, because you can just get it back and recycle it. So yeah, 1 Fusion Recovery for that. Really good for generating advantage. Next off, I only play 1 copy of Defusion now, because don't really want to see this early game either. This is really for pushing for a lot of damage. And you know, normally we don't have enough cards early game to fully utilize this, because it does target and interferes with Arya. So most of the times you want to fuse with an Arya and then defuse back into an Arya to reestablish your protection. Next off, a little new card. I play Flash Fusion. So this is basically an El Shaddai fusion, except that the fusion monster summoned with this is destroyed during the end phase. Really, really great tool to utilize on your opponent's turn, because this format we rely a lot on disrupting our opponent's graveyard. Mermaid Atlanteans and Monarchs especially, they rely really heavily on resources that go to the graveyard, and if we are able to grind them out, then that's really good for us. The chance of winning just skyrocket. Alright, and next we play 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon in the main deck. I know some Cosmo players like to main Skill Drain, and there's some problem cards, some back row, you know, some strikes, some warnings that you just want to be able to bypass. But this deck doesn't have enough card advantage to be able to play Twin Twister effectively, so main deck 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. Next off, we play 1 copy of Soul Charge. Really, really great card. Allows us to reestablish our fields after it's been cleared. So, pretty standard play right there. And last, not least, finally, got my hands on one of these. 1 Raigeki. Obviously, it lets us push for game. Allows us to get over a lot of big fields. If you are against Cosmo players, you can make Abyss Dweller Raigeki their field, and their ships can't float. So this is a very, very strong card indeed. And that's it for our spell cards. So we're going to move on to the trap cards next. Trap cards are pretty standard, exactly the same from last time. We play 3 copies of Powerful Rebirth. Obviously, Powerful Rebirth is very good in this deck, because when this card is destroyed, the monster isn't destroyed, so you can chain it to Twin Twisters, MSTs, get back your monsters, and they stay on the field. So it's a very strong card. Next off, we play 2 copies of Call of the Haunted, just because we run Elegy and Sopina, and we can get our fusion monsters back with this. It's also just 2 more revival cards, just in case, you know, in the battle phase, you can also summon with this and push for more damage if you need to. So there's that. Next, we play 1 copy of Bottomless Trap Hole, very standard. You don't like big monsters in the field. And last but not least, a Solemn Warning. Probably one of the best traps in the game right now, just because you can stop almost everything with this. So yeah, that's it for the trap cards. Next, we're going to go into the extra deck. So first off, we play 1 Super Quantum Mech Beast Grand Pulse, so we can overlay 2 Sonatas for this. He basically allows us to destroy face-up or face-down spell or trap cards. Very great for removal, and very, very useful, having an extra deck, basically spell trap removal. 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, stop the graveyard effects, Cosmo and stuff. Next, 1 copy of Gaga Cowboy, finish off games. Diamond Dire Wolf to pop threats. Castel, the Sky Blaster Musketeer, obviously removal. Next, Fairy Cheergirl for some draw power early game. Bujinte Tsukiyomi, this is a very cool card. She allows us to get rid of dead elegies and Sopinas in her hand, just in case we draw them. Next, 1/101 Silent Honor Arc, very, very strong card. Just sometimes you don't want them to have their card back, like Ignis or Prominence. You just want to take it and not let them use it again. 1 Karen Gorgon, very strong for just redirecting some targets. Even though most of our monsters are immune to targeting, you know, maybe they have an MST or something, you want to protect your back row, right? 1 copy of Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon, just because he can get really, really big and can help you attack over threats. So that's it for the XYZ monsters. Next, gonna look at our fusions. Very standard from last time as well. We play 3 copies of Shiberta, the Melodious Maestra. This is arguably the best card in our extra deck this format, just because the fact that we can, once per turn when this card is on the field, we can target up to 3 cards in either player's grave and banish them. Very, very strong card against Monarchs. You have this out, and they're going to hesitate putting their spells into the grave, so you can banish all their pantheisms, all their ideas, Eidos, really, really dwindle their resources. So very, very strong card in that regard. And we still play 2 copies of Bloom Diva, the Melodious Choir, because she is still the big boss monster of the deck, gets over all the special summon threats, and very, very strong against Cosmo, which seems to be one of the more dominant decks this format. So Shiberta against Monarchs is very strong, and Bloom Diva against Cosmo is very strong, just because you can continuously ram into their ships and they can't really do anything about it if you have an Arya on the field. Obviously, unless they main deck Cosmo Joe or something, but not a lot of players seem to be running that. All right, so next off, we're gonna look at our side deck. So we play 1 copy of Effect Veiler, just because if I need more negation, if I'm usually going second, so if it's something like Mermails, I want to stop their Naptibus. Okay, 2 copies of Honest. I didn't play this in my last deck profile, just because the fact that it wasn't really good, but now we have to attack over Monarchs. You have to attack over Monarchs. You need to regain access to the extra deck to have Shiberta for more disruption. So 2 there. I just didn't have space in the main deck to put them in, but you don't really need them in most games, so there's that. All right, I played 2 Kumungus, the Sticky String Kaiju, just because you could tribute their monsters and attack over them. You could run Gamma Seal and or the other Kaijus if you really wanted to, but you know, this one's a little more affordable than Gamma Seal is, and gets this job done. So 1 more copy of MST, more spell and trap removal. Again, 1 Twin Twister, just because sometimes you have like an Elegy or Sopina in hand and you can utilize this, maybe some dead spell in your hand as well. So more removal is always great, especially against the Monarchs. You know, you don't want them to set up their locks and stuff. Alright, so next off we play 1 copy of Quaking Mirror Force. This is a very strong card. It's non-targeting, non-destruction, and it flips all their monsters face down when they attack into you. So it stops OTKs, Murmur Atlanteans, or it can clog up the field if they're playing Pepes. So this is a very, very good card to be running in the side deck, especially because Ignister and stuff will probably spin your Arya and not your back row. So this can buy you some time and help you potentially win games. Alright, next I play 2 copies of Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell. I don't see a lot of people running this, but it's been working pretty effectively against Monarchs because you can just shut down one of their spells completely. You don't want them to use Monarch Stormforth, especially because the fact that they can tribute your Arya. You can stop Pantheism, and they can't use any of the effects of it for the rest of the round. So it's a very, very strong card, and we always have some sort of spell card in hand because of how many we run and how dead they can be mid to late game. So definitely very good card to be running. Next I run 2 copies of Gozen Match. Gozen Match seems to be working a little better than Rivalry, at least for me, just because the Cosmo matchup isn't really that important for us, that this mostly stops Monarchs, Pepes, and some rogue decks as well. So definitely running 2 goes in match. And last but not least, running 3 copies of Imperial Iron Wall. This is a very good card deciding against Monarchs, against Cosmo, especially Cosmo. And even though it interferes with Shiberta, it's not that important because we can still play while they have a really, really hard time trying to get anything done. So that is a really good card. And that is it for our side deck. And that is it for the deck profile. Thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful in any way, please give the video a like. Subscribe for more Melodious content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And I'll see you all next time. Take care.